Breezy Johnson stood frozen in the starting gate, the rhythmic thrum of rotor blades slicing through her concentration. It is February 8th, 2026. A suffocating silence hangs over the Tofane in Cortina d'Ampezzo, the unforgiving queen of the Dolomites. Only moments ago, the roar of thousands screaming for Lindsey Vonn had shaken the very ground. Now, that same crowd gazed upward in horror, watching a yellow rescue bird winch the greatest skier of all time off the mountain. For the racers left stranded at the summit, this is the ultimate psychological torture test. You are balancing on two thin strips of carbon, preparing to throw yourself down an ice sheet at 85 miles per hour, while the Reaper hovers directly overhead. Usually, the start house reeks of wax and nervous sweat. But that morning, the air smelled like catastrophe. Most athletes would have crumbled right there. Their pulses would have hammered. Their killer instinct would have turned to mush. Yet, as Breezy Johnson stared down the Tofane Schuss, the steepest, most violent launch in the women's circuit, she didn't feel dread. She felt a calling. Bib 15 was ready to drop. She had just witnessed her idol break. She knew Team USA was staring into the abyss of a lost day. And right then, Breezy decided that the morning's horror would not dictate the day's ending. When the beep triggered, Breezy didn't just push off. She detonated. She wasn't just racing the clock anymore. She was skiing to salvage the soul of a shattered morning. To grasp how she could wall off that trauma, you have to understand that she was literally rebuilt for this. Her path to this gate wasn't a comeback. It was a medical resurrection. Back in 2022, Breezy was the fastest downhill demon on Earth. Then, weeks before the Beijing Games, her world imploded on this exact hill in Cortina. A training wreck didn't just snap her ACL. It blasted a chunk of cartilage loose with a sickening crack that still echoes in her nightmares. The Olympics were gone. She went under the knife for a procedure straight out of a sci-fi novel, an osteochondral allograft. Surgeons literally harvested living cartilage from a cadaver and transplanted it into her knee to keep her career alive. For 99% of athletes, that's the curtain call. For Breezy, it was just the start of the hell walk. She spent 6 months on crutches, dead weight, relearning how to be a human being before she could even think about being a skier. She lost 22 months to the sidelines between 2018 and 2022, battered by a triple threat, a right ACL tear, followed by a freak crash that shredded the PCL and MCL in the other leg just 9 months later. She and Lindsey Vonn became blood sisters in broken bones. They shared the same surgeons, the same titanium hardware, and the same stubborn refusal to accept a plan B. Vonn once said, "Breezy has one mode, full send." That engine started revving at 7:30 every morning. In a Park City gym, she ground through punishing balance drills to rewire the fried circuits between her brain and her legs. She wasn't just stacking muscle. She was recalibrating her internal GPS to trust a knee held together by donated parts. Let's talk about the savage physics of the Tofane Schuss. This isn't a ski run. It is Formula One on ice. The course plunges 2,500 feet over 1.6 miles. The opening act is a 64% gradient, a vertical cliff face boxed in by towering rock walls. In the first 5 seconds, Breezy dove into that chute and rocketed from 0 to 80.2 miles per hour. At that velocity, the air feels as thick as water. She hit the Schuss with a wider stance than the rest. She had no choice. Her torso swung wild off the first kicker. A terrifying wobble that would have sent a mortal skier into the catch fences, but Breezy tamed it with what the announcers called pure guts. She hammered her weight back, found her center, and locked into a bullet tuck through the Scarpadon traverse. This is the danger zone. In downhill, every time you stand up to save yourself, you become a parachute. That drag costs you thousandths of a second. Breezy refused to give the mountain an inch. She pulled nearly 3 Gs in the Delta turn, her zombie knee eating up vibrations that feel like jackhammers on concrete at 80 miles per hour. When she smashed across the finish line, the red digits froze at 1 minute, 36.1 to 0. She had taken it by 400ths of a second, roughly the length of a ski tip. It was a masterclass in controlled chaos. She was a full second faster than the first 5 racers to drop. But as only the 6th runner down, she had to sit in the hot seat and watch 30 more women try to steal her gold. While Breezy waited on that throne of anxiety, the cameras caught a glimpse of the human behind the helmet. She was wearing a red, white, and blue headband she'd knitted the night before. Knitting is Breezy's secret weapon against the noise. It is her active meditation. In a sport defined by high-octane violence, those needles provide the quiet hands she needs to survive. She packs a knitting kit for every stop on the World Cup circuit, tucking herself away in hotel foyers or the back of transport vans. The rhythmic click-clack of the needles helps silence the mental static, the memories of crashes, the rehab, and the career-threatening setbacks. Team USA Speed lives by a nightly ritual called highs and lows, where they gather over dinner to dissect the best and worst moments of their day. Turning 30 right before the games, Breezy confessed her darkest low, the 14-month suspension in 2024 that almost finished her. But she also revealed her high, the realization that this squad had evolved from teammates into a true sisterhood. That bond was the only lifeline during the agonizing 20-minute freeze following Vaughn's terrifying wipeout. Panic swept the other coaching boxes as they watched the radar, but the Americans just held space for one another. Breezy wasn't chasing hardware. She was racing for a tribe that kept a seat open at the table even when the sky was falling. You only needed to look at the finish corral to understand the magnitude of the moment. Olympic champions usually roar in triumph. Breezy Johnson just stood there, buried her face in her gloves, and let the tears flow. She etched her name alongside Lindsey Vonn, becoming only the second American woman to ever capture the Olympic downhill crown. Triumph mixed with tragedy, though. Her first thoughts went immediately to the fallen legend. Word came down that Vonn was rooting for her from the medevac chopper, a brutal, beautiful changing of the guard. For 16 long years, American downhill relied on a single superstar. 2026 proved the program is now a powerhouse built on pure grit. She sealed the double, pairing this Olympic gold with her world championship title from Saalbach a year prior. As Team USA's first hardware of the Games, it shattered the tension hanging over the entire delegation. It was proof that you can get knocked down, beaten up, and still rise to take the crown. On the podium, she launched herself so violently in celebration that her medal snapped off, forcing her to stash the gold in her pocket. Perfect symbolism for a racer who has physically carried the weight of her broken dreams through the darkest valleys. That victory didn't just end a race, it electrified the entire 2026 calendar. By taming the Tofane beast, she shattered the fear barrier for every teammate standing at the start gate. Jackie Wiles clocked a fourth-place finish, usually a headline grabber, but today it served as the perfect warm-up for the combined. Breezy and Michaela Schifrin enter as the reigning title holders in this tag team event. Combine Johnson's raw velocity with Schifrin's technical wizardry, and you have the most lethal pair in Milan. The Johnson epoch brings a fresh vibe, less individual stardom, more collective survival. An English lit scholar at heart, she lives by Churchill's decree. If you're going through hell, keep walking. She took that walk through the inferno and turned it into a flat-out sprint. The Italian Tifosi, who live and die for Sofia Goggia, didn't view Breezy as the enemy. They recognized a warrior who had paid the steep price of Cortina in broken bones and finally came to collect her due. The glory of 2026 goes beyond the hardware. It marks a spiritual shift in alpine skiing. Vonn brought the cameras, the celebrity, and the global spotlight. Johnson brought the guts to Milan, proving the road to Olympus is never a straight shot. It is a brutal, icy climb riddled with crevasses and desperate surgeries. She taught us that a legend isn't defined by what gathers dust in a display cabinet. It's defined by the will to rebuild your mind when the lights go out. Breezy won more than a race in Cortina. She seized a destiny that was snatched from her 4 years ago, proving that even when the chopper lands, the race isn't over. The Alps have a new monarch, and the crown rests on a head made of iron. The Vonn dynasty has ended. The age of Breezy is in full swing. And for the first time in 16 years, that gold medal is exactly where it belongs.